It's been a while since I've last posted a video, and I just wanted to apologize for that up front. These past few weeks have been super hectic, and I just have not had time to sit down and make a video. Last week I went on vacation to Michigan. I know traveling is a privilege nowadays, and I made sure to take the proper precautions like social distancing, sanitizing after I left public places, and more. 2 weeks before my vacation, I was very busy with band camp. I don't think I talk about this much on my channel, but I do marching band on the side, so I was busy with my 12-hour days. I finished an oil painting a little over 2 weeks ago, and I was hoping that I could release it earlier than I am going to. But the painting, the varnish was taking forever to dry. I believe it's because I painted it on paper, so it was really soaking it in. But I really do miss pushing videos out though, especially since it has been so long, so I figured I would sit back and make a very relaxed video. Today I'm going to be sharing 6 tips for a great art journal. The first tip I have is to save any paper scraps that you may use. I am somebody that uses scrapbook paper for almost every art journal page that I create, and most of the time there is a lot of paper left over. Instead of throwing away that extra paper, find a place to store and save it. I use scraps all the time. Not only are you getting good use out of all your material, but it's also saving you a lot of money. Instead of paying for more paper, you get use of what you have. The second tip is to save any materials that you could possibly use in your journal. I feel like some people think that you should use artist materials for journaling, such as scrapbook paper, paint, and more. However, I think you would be surprised with how many things you actually can use in your journal. In my opinion, almost anything can be used in an art journal. You may have heard of an artist named Barbara von Gorp. I've always been such a huge fan of hers, and I even got the chance to collaborate with her. In one of her videos, she created a spread made just of materials that would be considered trash. She used things such as old fishnet tights, a label of a food can, and cardboard. In this video, I made use of scrap material by using old tissue paper and color swatches that I picked up from the hardware store. Now, after I listened back to this video, I realized that I could have combined tip 1 and tip 2 by simply saying to save any scraps you have, but I'm too lazy to redo any of my voiceovers, so it's whatever. Tip number 3 is to use your extra paint. This tip is a little vague without explanation, but hear me out. Obviously, as you guys have seen from my channel, it is not solely a journaling channel. I am a mixed bag when it comes to what kind of art I do. I use watercolors, gouache, acrylic, and I am just starting to use oil paints now. While I also draw a little bit as well, it is obvious that painting is my strong suit. There have been many occasions where I accidentally squeeze out just a little too much paint from the tube. If you know me, I am somebody that tries not to spend too much money on myself, so I always try my best to squeeze out as little paint as possible so it's enough for me to finish my piece. However, sometimes the way the tube is made just makes it really hard to squeeze out the smallest bit of paint, so I'm left with a lot of additional extra paint. Instead of washing it down the sink and wasting it, I use the extra bit on a random journal page. Tip number 4 is to pick out a color scheme for your spread before you start. This is something that depends a little more on personal preference, but for me, I find that it makes the journaling process a lot easier. I find that if I do not plan a specific color scheme or one main color, the page ends up looking really chaotic or unattractive. Now, that isn't to say chaos or multiple colors is automatically unattractive. There are some instances where it is intentional and it looks very well done. Like I said, it all really boils down to personal preference. But if you do need help coming up with a color scheme, I would recommend going online and searching up for a random color generator for inspiration. I wasn't quite sure what color I was going to make this spread, so before I started the piece that I'm currently doing, I searched up a random color generator to find some inspiration. I will link the website I used in the description box down below, or, if YouTube allows it, link it in the little eye in the right-hand corner. Tip
Number 5 is to gather any materials you may want to use and put them in one designated area. I usually do this after I've chosen my color scheme. You don't necessarily have to follow this tip if you don't want to, but I do believe that it makes the journaling process a lot more efficient instead of having to get out my chair multiple times to get something I may need. All I do is keep the color scheme I had in mind and pick out any materials I think I may want to use for this spread. You may have seen me picking out the paint, swatch cards, and stickers. I put those items and set them aside beforehand so that I did not have to get up during the actual journaling process. Another thing that can help is putting these items into a folder or pocket like I did. The 6th and final tip I have is to use your intuition. Don't set unrealistic expectations for yourself, like trying to make it perfect. Don't try and plan out your piece too far ahead, because then that sets an expectation in a way. Now, yes, choosing a color scheme and setting aside any materials you may want to use is considered planning, but what I'm talking about is to try not to plan the layout of the spread. Let your intuition guide you. After all, this is a creative activity. I usually set a lot of expectations onto myself when it comes to creating big pieces, so I use my art journal as an emotional and creative outlet where I can let loose and do whatever I want to do without any rules. Have fun with your art journal and trust the process. Anyway guys, let me know if you found any of these tips helpful. I'm sure I forgot some of them in this video at some point, so if I do think of some that I didn't mention earlier in the video, I will leave a pinned comment and tell you what that tip is. But yeah, I hope that you did find some of these helpful. This was a video I really enjoyed making, and it was meant to be very relaxed. But yeah, anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.